If you'd asked me 2 years ago what my life would look like right now, I probably would have painted you a picture that sounds almost laughable compared to where I've ended up. Back then, I had stability, a long-term relationship, a decent job, friends I'd known for years, and this general sense that I was on a solid, predictable path. I didn't think I was the kind of person who would blow it all up. I guess most people don't think they're capable of burning their own house down until they smell the smoke and realize they're the one holding the match. Annie and I had been together for 8 years. We met in 2014 at a friend's birthday party in Bristol. I still remember what she was wearing that night. A mustard yellow jumper and ripped black jeans. Her hair in this messy bun that somehow made her look like she hadn't tried at all, but still managed to be the most magnetic person in the room. She was the kind of person who could make you feel like you'd known her for years after just a 10-minute conversation. I don't know if it was the couple of ciders I'd had, or just her presence, but I remember thinking, if I don't talk to her tonight, I'll regret it forever. We started dating within a couple of weeks, and it felt effortless, not perfect, but solid. She grounded me in ways I didn't even realize I needed. When we first moved in together in 2016, it was into this tiny two-bedroom flat above a cafe that always smelled like burnt espresso beans. The floors creaked, the kitchen tiles were chipped, and the heating only worked if you hit the radiator hard enough. But we loved it. There were nights when we'd be sitting on the floor, eating takeaway out of plastic containers, and she'd just look at me like I was her whole world. I don't want to pretend we didn't have problems. We argued like any couple. Sometimes she'd call me out for being too closed off emotionally, for not talking enough about how I was feeling. Other times I'd get frustrated with how easily she could just shut down when she was upset, disappearing into herself for days. But it was never enough to make me doubt us, or at least that's what I told myself. Looking back now, I can see the cracks that were already there. The way we slowly stopped making as much effort. Date nights became Netflix marathons. Little gestures, like her leaving me notes in my lunch bag, or me bringing her flowers from the shop down the road, just faded. Life got routine, comfortable. And comfort, I've learned, can be dangerous. By 2022, I was working at a marketing firm in the city, the kind of place with open plan offices, beanbags in the corner that no one actually sat on, and motivational quotes on the walls that made you roll your eyes. I'd been there for a few years, and it was not my dream job, but it paid the bills. Annie had started her own photography business around that time, and was doing really well. She was busy, always out on shoots, editing late into the night. I was proud of her, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't start feeling sidelined. That's when Jess came into the picture. She was hired as a project coordinator, about 5 years younger than me. Sharp, ambitious, the kind of person who could work a full day and still have the energy to go out for drinks afterwards. We clicked quickly. At first it was just friendly banter, the kind you have with someone you sit near every day. She'd tell me about her weekend plans. I'd complain about deadlines. We'd joke about how ridiculous some of our clients were. But over time, I started noticing how much I looked forward to those conversations. I wish I could tell you I saw it coming and stopped it before it crossed a line. But the truth is, I let it happen. Late nights in the office turned into grabbing drinks after work. Drinks turned into texting outside of work hours. And eventually, texting turned into something I can't undo. The night it happened, I remember telling myself it was just a one-time thing, that I'd made a stupid, selfish mistake but could keep it separate from my real life. But lies have a way of snowballing. What started as a secret fling became something I was juggling alongside my relationship with Annie. And with every day that passed, the weight of what I was doing pressed down harder. I don't even know if Annie had any suspicions before she found out. If she did, she never let on. She still kissed me goodbye in the mornings. Still sent me memes she thought I'd like. Still asked me if I wanted tea before bed. But there were moments, fleeting, almost imperceptible, when I'd catch her looking at me like she was studying my face for an answer to a question she hadn't asked yet. I think the most dangerous thing was that I got good at lying, not just to her, but to myself. I told myself I still loved her, that I'd eventually end things with Jess, that Annie would never have to know. But deep down, I think I knew I was already playing with matches in a house made of dry wood. When the truth finally came out, it didn't explode the way I expected. There was no screaming, no crying, no dramatic confrontation. Annie didn't give me that scene. She didn't give me anything. She just disappeared from my life. And that silence, I would come to learn, was more devastating than any fight we could have had. The way Annie found out is still something I can't fully piece together. I've replayed it in my head hundreds of times, wondering if there was a single moment where I could have stopped it. One conversation I could have avoided. One text I could have deleted faster. But it doesn't matter now. The damage was instant and irreversible. It was April of last year, a Wednesday. I remember because it was one of those deceptively nice spring days in England. Sunny but still cold enough to need a jacket. I left for work like normal, kissed Annie on the cheek, and headed into the office. I had no idea that by the end of that day, my life as I knew it would be over. When I got home that evening, the flat was stripped bare of anything that connected us. Her shoes were gone from the hallway. Her camera gear, usually piled near the desk, had vanished. Even the silly fridge magnets we collected from holidays had been removed. There was just this gaping blankness where her life used to fit into mine. At first I thought maybe something had happened to her family. My brain was scrambling for explanations that didn't involve the truth I'd been hiding. But then I saw the envelope on the kitchen counter, my name written in her handwriting. Inside, there was nothing but my front door key. No note, no explanation. I checked my phone. Dozens of missed calls, not from Annie, but from friends, mutual acquaintances. I opened my messages and saw a group chat we were both in had been renamed, her number removed. That's when it hit me. She knew. She really knew. I panicked. I called her over and over, left voicemails begging her to pick up. I sent text after text, some apologizing, some desperate, some pathetic. I told her I was sorry, that it was a stupid mistake, that I'd do anything to fix it. Nothing, not even a single word reply. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face the moment she must have realized who I really was. I imagined her scrolling through my messages to Jess, piecing together just how deep the betrayal was. I thought about the nights she'd been editing photos late, and me telling her I was stuck at the office when I was actually with someone else. The guilt was suffocating. By the next morning, it wasn't just Annie who knew. My phone was blowing up with messages from people I thought were my friends. Some were furious, others just cold. A couple of them told me outright never to contact them again. My world shrank in the space of a few hours. People I'd known for years suddenly wouldn't even look at me. Then came the email from HR. My company had a no relationships between colleagues policy. It wasn't just frowned upon, it was a fireable offense, especially if it came out the way mine had. Jess and I were both called into a meeting, and though she managed to keep her job after some kind of formal warning, I was let go on the spot. They told me it was in the best interest of the company, but we all knew the truth. I was a walking PR nightmare. Losing Annie was one thing. Losing my job was another. Losing almost every friend I had. That was the part that broke something inside me. People I'd laughed with, celebrated with, leaned on, gone overnight, and I couldn't even defend myself, because I had done exactly what I was accused of. I was the bad guy. In the days that followed, I threw myself into trying to get Annie to hear me out. I must have sent hundreds of messages. I even reached out to her friends, begging them to convince her to talk to me. The only responses I got were curt or outright hostile. One of her closest friends told me Annie didn't want to hear a single word from me, that she'd made up her mind and that was it. Jess knew about the messages. She saw them on my phone one night, and it nearly ended things before they'd even really started. I remember her sitting there stone-faced, asking me if I was still in love with Annie. I told her no, and at the time I think I believed it. But the truth is more complicated. It wasn't love in the way it used to be. It was this desperate need for her forgiveness, not because I thought it would fix us, but because I needed her to tell me I wasn't the monster I was starting to believe I was. Jess stayed, but there was tension. Little digs, questions about where I'd been, comments about Annie that I'd brush off, but would eat away at me later. When she got pregnant, it shifted everything. We decided to commit to the idea of being a family. I told myself this was my second chance, a way to make up for all the things I'd ruined. But even with the baby on the way, Annie never reached out. No accidental texts, no slips, nothing. It was like she'd erased me completely. And as much as that hurt, there was a twisted kind of relief in it. If she was gone, she couldn't hurt me any more than I'd already hurt myself. Or so I thought. Jess's pregnancy was this strange, surreal chapter of my life, a mix of joy, fear, and guilt all tangled together. She told me just a few weeks after we found out, her voice soft but steady, like she was already trying to be the rock for both of us. I wanted to be that rock too, for her and for the baby I knew I was responsible for. But the truth was, I was far from steady. In the early days, I was trying to piece together a life that felt like it had shattered into a million fragments. I was juggling a new relationship I barely understood, the weight of losing Annie, the loss of my job, and the judgment of everyone around me. I didn't want to drag Jess down with all the mess, so I put on this act of control, but inside I was unraveling. Jess was great about everything though. She'd make appointments, remind me about scans, even coax me to eat better when my stress made me skip meals. I admired her strength and her no-nonsense attitude, but there were moments, late at night when I was lying awake, when I felt like I didn't deserve any of it. The baby was a symbol of something new, sure, but also a constant reminder of the life I'd destroyed. And then there was Anne. She stayed silent, not a word, no contact, no chance to say goodbye or find closure. It was like a ghost hovering in the background of my life. Sometimes I'd catch myself looking at my phone, almost expecting a message from her to pop up, even though I knew better. One random Thursday afternoon, about a month before Jess was due, I was out grabbing coffee when I saw her, Annie, standing in the queue at a little shop, just a few blocks from my old flat. It was the first time I'd seen her since the breakup, and I felt this strange mix of dread and relief. She looked the same and different all at once, the same sharp eyes, the same subtle curve to her smile, but colder somehow, like she'd built a wall I couldn't scale anymore. She spotted me too. Her expression was distant, guarded. I tried to smile, but I'm sure it looked awkward. She said something about a keychain, this old scratched-up keychain my granddad had given me when I was a kid. It wasn't worth much, but it meant everything to me. She said I could come pick it up the following Saturday morning. No questions, just come, or it was going in the bin. I told her I might be at the hospital then. Jess was past her due date, so the timing was tight. Annie didn't care. It was either Saturday or nothing. I agreed, mostly because I wanted that little piece of my past back, even if it was bittersweet. That Saturday came faster than I expected. Jess was still pregnant, a few days late, but perfectly healthy and glowing in that exhausted, beautiful way new moms do. I was planning to stop by Annie's place quickly on the way to the hospital, just to get the keychain and be on my way. When I arrived though, Annie did something I didn't see coming. She invited me inside. We sat in the living room, the one I'd spent countless nights in, and for a while it felt like old times. She asked me how I was, if I was coping. I told her the truth. It was hard, but I was trying. She listened quietly, and then without bitterness, told me she wanted to talk about how things ended between us. I thought we had something rare in that moment, a chance at closure. I apologized, not just for the cheating, but for all the ways I'd hurt her over the years. She didn't yell or cry, just nodded and wished me the best with Jess and the baby. Before I left, she hugged me. It was brief but firm. I held on a little longer than I should have, not because I wanted to go back, but because I felt this wave of relief crashing over me. Like maybe, just maybe, I could finally start to move on. I didn't tell Jess about seeing Annie. I knew she still felt uneasy about her, and I didn't want to stir up anything unnecessary. So I kept it to myself, thinking I was doing the right thing. But then I got to the hospital, and everything went to hell. Jess had revoked my access. The ward manager wouldn't say why. I was confused, then frustrated, then desperate. I tried calling Jess, her mom, anyone who might tell me what was going on. The only reply I got was a screen recording, a video from Annie. It was footage from the doorbell camera at her house, showing me walking in around 9:30 and leaving just after 10:50. The hug was barely caught on camera, but the angle made it look like something more. Annie's message that came with it was brutal. She wrote, "Did he even shower and change his clothes between fucking me and holding his son? Congratulations on being stuck with him for the next 18 years. I hope it's everything you dreamed of." I was stunned,
This was a whole new level of pain. I was being framed, my name dragged through the mud in a way I never imagined. No one believed me, not Jess, not her family, not the few friends who were still in my corner. Annie was the one who had the story, and her silence had turned into a weapon sharper than any words could be. I sent Annie a message, asking why she'd done this. Her answer was cold and calculated. She said she wasn't going to let me play innocent. She claimed to have every message I'd ever sent her, and even if I deleted them, she hadn't. Then she blocked me again, and just like that, I was alone.
After that day at the hospital, everything felt like it was slipping through my fingers faster than I could catch. I wasn't just fighting to see my son anymore. I was fighting for any shred of dignity left in a life that felt like it was crumbling into dust. Jess had revoked my access completely, and no amount of begging or explaining could change that. The ward manager refused to tell me why, citing patient privacy and hospital policy, but I knew the truth was darker. Annie's message had done its damage. The seed of doubt had been planted, and it was growing fast. I remember sitting in my parents' living room later that day, phone in hand, replaying the video Annie sent again and again. That hug, how it looked, the silence before it, the way the camera only caught half the story, made me feel like I was trapped inside a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. The cruelest thing wasn't that Annie set me up. It was that no one seemed to care that I was telling the truth. My own mother was the hardest. I thought she'd listen, that she'd believe me. Instead, she asked one question I couldn't answer without breaking. Why did you ruin your life with a baby when Annie was willing to reconcile? Her voice wasn't accusatory, but the disappointment cut deep. That was probably the most support I got in months, and it felt hollow. Friends who remained were caught in the middle. A few of them tried to reach out to Jess, hoping to smooth things over. Others just told me to accept the consequences and move on. I started to understand how lonely this kind of public shame could be. It's not just losing people. It's the way your story twists in everyone else's mind, painted with the colors they want to see. I couldn't just sit back and let this be my story, though. Even when the weight of regret threatened to crush me, something inside refused to give up. I had a son now, a tiny, perfect boy, who didn't deserve to grow up with his father erased. The court battle was slow, brutal, and exhausting. I hired a lawyer, which I couldn't really afford, but every penny felt worth it. The legal system moves at its own pace, though, and for every step forward, it felt like I took 2 steps back. Evidence was hard to come by, especially when the other side controlled the narrative. Annie's footage was damning because it was real, but edited and incomplete in context. My messages and attempts to explain fell on deaf ears. I wrestled constantly with what to do. Fight harder? Settle? Accept that maybe I deserved this. Some nights the anger consumed me. Other nights the shame did. I hated myself for what I'd done to Annie, but I also hated the idea of being erased from my son's life because of a lie. Jess and I tried to keep some sense of normalcy, but the tension was always there. She wanted me to focus on being a good father now, but the shadow of Annie's message lingered between us. We had arguments about trust, jealousy, and the past issues that no pregnancy glow could erase. I was trying to build something new from the wreckage of my mistakes, but the wreckage was bigger than I imagined. Every day without my son felt like a punch to the gut. I'd scroll through my phone, looking at the ultrasounds, the photos Jess sent me, the little kicks, the heartbeat recordings, reminders of what I was missing. I wanted to believe there was a chance to fix this, but the silence from Jess and the coldness from Annie made it feel impossible. I started writing again, not just texts or emails, but pages and pages of thought, sometimes angry, sometimes hopeful, sometimes broken. It was the only way I could process the storm inside me. I wrote about Annie and Jess, about the son I hadn't fully held yet, about the man I'd become, and the man I wanted to be. I don't know how this story will end. The court case is ongoing, and my heart still aches every time I think about the moments I'm missing with my boy. I've learned that forgiveness isn't something you earn once and then move on from. It's a daily battle, a fragile thing that can be snatched away in a heartbeat. But through all this, I hold on to one thing: the hope that someday, somehow, my son will know the truth, that he'll know his father didn't disappear because he didn't care, but because the people around him decided to rewrite my story. Sitting here now, months after everything came crashing down, I'm still trying to make sense of how my life got to this place. I'm a man who lost almost everything: love, trust, friendships, a career, and somehow gained a son I haven't really been able to hold in my arms. The court case drags on, inching forward with agonizing slowness. Each hearing is a fresh reminder of what I've lost and what I'm fighting for. The legal world doesn't care about my regrets or the long history I had with Annie. It cares about evidence and timelines and custody agreements. And even with my lawyer fighting tooth and nail, it feels like the deck is stacked against me. What kills me the most is the silence, the absence of any chance to explain my side without it being twisted or dismissed. Annie's video, that damning clip, lives online and in the minds of everyone I know. No one wants to hear about context or redemption. They just see the man who betrayed and lied, and now can't be trusted. I've lost contact with Jess entirely. The pregnancy, the birth, the first few weeks, all of that happened with me in the background, a stranger trying to find his place. Her family believes Annie's version, and she won't let me near the baby. I don't blame her for protecting her son. I'm the guy who broke so many promises, but it hurts like hell. And yet, even in all this darkness, I find moments of clarity. I'm learning that redemption isn't about winning the approval of others. It's about owning your mistakes, trying to be better, and holding on to whatever hope you can find, no matter how small. I don't expect Annie to forgive me. I don't expect her to undo what she did. And I don't expect the world to see me as anything other than the bad guy in this story. But I do want my son to know me, not as the villain, but as someone who loved him fiercely, even when the world was telling him not to. Maybe one day he'll ask questions. Maybe one day I'll have the chance to tell him the whole truth. Until then, I hold on to that hope like a lifeline. Because if I've learned anything, it's this: life can break you in ways you never imagined. But sometimes, even in the ruins, there's a chance to rebuild. Not perfectly, not without scars, but with the kind of honesty that real healing needs. And that's the story I'm still trying to write, one day at a time.